All right, I'm just going to introduce myself real quick. My name is Jennifer Pro. I am the president and founder of Elderwerks Educational Services, a not-for-profit 501c3 corporation in Illinois. We help any older adult, senior, or family member find any type of senior living, care, support, or benefits. We act as senior guidance counselors, so if you have any questions, reach out anytime. There is no fee for our service, so you can call every day if you want. Emily, our office manager, will love that. I wanted to thank the Veterans Assistance Commission of McHenry County for helping us put this program on this week. Without them, we would be limited on our touch, and so we really, really appreciate them and the services they provide. They're so good. Wanted to mention that we did purchase 2 Mission Barbecue gift cards for the week for the attendees of the programs. Mission Barbecue is not a sponsor of this event, but they do support veterans, and they offer a lot of discounts and free food and things like that to veterans. So if you haven't been to Mission Barbecue, they're really good too. So I will draw those on Friday. If you can fill out the survey at the end of this presentation, it will pop up on your screen and then you will be in the drawing. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Chris now. Chris Petrik, I should say, is a nurse with Elderwerks and our training specialist. She's a certified dementia educator, and she comes to Elderwerks with over 30 years of experience in the healthcare industry, from bedside nursing to education. Chris brings a cross-section of experience. As past adjunct faculty at a local community college, Chris helped develop and implement curriculum. Holding positions of director of staff education and resident wellness, Chris soon learned her passion surrounded the arena of education of dementia and became a certified dementia educator so that staff could learn about the disease, leading to a more positive interaction between staff and the persons living with dementia. Chris is also available for various on-site and off-site trainings related to IDPR regulations, as well as other relevant topics related to senior living. Currently, Elderwerks is virtual, so all programming this year is via Zoom or live stream. So just so you're aware, in 2022, we will resume on-site trainings. In Chris's spare time, she enjoys spending time with her husband, Russ, and her 7 grandchildren, who finally call her Gigi. Chris is a very special human at Elderwerks. We appreciate all that she does, and we love her. So hopefully you'll love her presentation. Chris, take it away.
Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks for those kudos. I appreciate it. We're going to talk about the dilemmas of caregiving today, and I can speak from a research perspective, but I can also speak from a person who was and continues to caregive. And we know that many of us will be called upon sometime in our life to become a caregiver for someone. It could be a partner, a family member, or a friend. Some of us already have been called to do this. Some may think, I didn't sign up for this, but here I am. So in the words of Rosalind Carter, you remember her, there are 4 kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who are currently caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need caregiving. So today we're going to explore the biggest crisis in caregiving, and that's called caregiver burnout. So at the end of this webinar, you should be able to define what caregiver burnout is, common feelings with caregiver burnout, how caregiver burnout affects someone physically and emotionally, big time, tips to prevent caregiver burnout, and sources for assistance for caregivers. What is caregiver burnout? It's really the state of physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion that can be accompanied by a change in attitude from positive and caring to negative and unconnected. Burnout can occur when caregivers do not get help that they need, or they try to do more than they are able, either physically, emotionally, or financially. Almost every caretaker will experience burnout at some point. If it does happen and it's not addressed, the caregiver eventually becomes unable to provide good care. For this reason, caregiver burnout can be harmful to the person receiving care as well as the caregiver. There was a large study that was done in the journals of gerontology, and they even found that caregivers who felt they were under a lot of strain had a greater risk of dying themselves than the person they were caring for. So that tends to happen a lot also. So I'm going to take a poll here, and if you want to, you can go to, and I'm going to put my little bar back up there because I'm going to have you go to chat, and I'm going to ask you if caregiving role have you ever been a caregiver? And anybody who out there who has been a caregiver, go ahead and write it in the chat, yes. And then if you've experienced caregiver burnout, if you feel like sharing that, go ahead and put that in there too. So let me get my little bar down here. And yes, and maybe we've got some people that said yes, they have been caregivers. And you may not have really realized it, but you have, or you may have realized that you've had some stress that goes along with that. And I'm going to just get rid of this again so you don't see it. So caregiving is a difficult job. Let's look at caregiver statistics here. Nearly 1 in 5, and that's about 19%, are providing unpaid care to an adult with health or functional needs. You know, we think a lot of times of caregiving with someone with dementia, but we have a lot of older adults that may be physically, not cognitively disabled. So even though they may be more appropriate to give directions to, it might be the physical needs that you're having a hard time meeting. More Americans are caring for more than one person, and that's up from 18% in 2015. So it really has gone up, and we know that people in my age category are now at the point where they are taking care of maybe both parents, or they may have an aunt that or an uncle that never married or lost their partner and now are feeling responsible for that. More family caregivers have difficulty coordinating care, and that is up, that's about 26%, and that's up from 19% in 2015. And then more Americans are caring for someone with Alzheimer's disease and dementia. More Americans say caregiving have made their own health worse, and that is up 17% from 2015. And I know these look like very old statistics. Unfortunately, those are the most current. Family caregiving spans across all generations, including boomers, Gen X, Gen Zs, and millennials. And the reason we look at caregiving across those generations is because America is not healthy. And we know that because we look at the obesity in America, and we look at what that causes, people with elevated cholesterol, heart disease, pressure on joints, and that sometimes for many people will end up with a physical limitation that causes the family to assist with caregiving. An astounding 61% of family caregivers are also working. I know when my mom was alive and my father-in-law was alive, and we're caregivers for both of them. Fortunately, not at the same time, but when we did, I was working. I had 3 kids in college, so I couldn't quit work to stay home and caregive. My husband worked full-time, I worked full-time, and we were both caregiving. For my father-in-law, we were caregiving in the home after 2 strokes. And with my mother, we moved her from independent living in her home to independent to assisted to long-term care. So it's quite a responsibility when you're juggling family, working full-time, and caregiving. We know that there's, among caregivers, there's special recognition that should be given to the sandwich generation. And this is the group who may have put off childbearing and raising family and now find themselves not only raising a family, but being a caregiver as well. And I didn't put off childbearing. I had my kids in my 20s, my late 20s, but here I was with kids in high school. So they weren't young and they were a little more independent. but you're looking at families where the children are young, so you're caregiving for the young children as well as the older adult. Much of the population today works full-time. The demand to make ends meet financially is evident, as other cultural groups such as Asians, who typically would stay home and be responsible for caregiving, not only as a parent, but also as a caregiver of their parents, find that for many, this is no longer the case financially. When I worked in Schaumburg, they were building a all Korean adult daycare. Now, if you look at the Korean culture, they're part of the Asian culture that really tries to keep their older family members at home and caregive at home. But because that's not possible in the United States, what they did was they built a caregiving building and filled it with people from their culture to caregive. So they felt, at least they felt like they were still being part of that caregiving by participating in this Korean caregiving community. Some of the causes of caregiver burnout is the conflicting demands. Again, you're taking care. Do I go to my child's play, or is it time for that counseling session that I need to go with my adult family member when we're doing care planning for them? So there's all those conflicting demands we have. Lack of control. We know that when we are a caregiver, if you've done this before, you know that there is an element of lack of control with people that we care for. There's also a lack of privacy. You really have to be transparent about your care, and you have to, we'll talk about seeking help. You have to let people know what's going on if you want to get some help for someone. Also, there's some role confusion. What I found with my mom, not so much with my father-in-law, I'm sure my husband felt it there, but with my mom, it was, I was the daughter, but now I am the parent. And so it's really hard to make that transition emotionally, psychologically, not only for me, but it was also for my mother, because even with dementia, she realized the roles had switched. Unreasonable demands, and we see those all the time. And then unrealistic expectations. When I talk about how to remove some of that pressure and the causes of caregiver burnout, we're going to talk about some of those unrealistic expectations. We also know that there's financial issues, and all of us have felt in the last year and a half isolation. People who are caregivers feel that year round, because oftentimes it's very difficult to get those people, the people that we're caregiving for, out of the house, or even to get ourselves out of the house to find some time for ourselves. So those are some of the reasons for caregiver burnout. Caregivers, we're the boots on the ground. We are the knowledge of well-being and sustained engagement with healthcare providers. We know that it's critical to the success of both medical and psychosocial components of care. If we're not with them, if we don't, and when I talk about being boots on the ground, we're the ones taking them to the podiatrist. We're the ones taking them to their primary. We're the ones taking them for an outpatient x-ray. We're the ones taking them to the hairdresser. We are the people that are the boots on the ground, and it's important that we are with these people because we're the ones that provide that critical information. And by providing that critical information, whether it's medical or psychosocial components of that care, it's going to achieve the success that that person needs to live a good life. So our role is extremely important. We also play multiple roles. We are the care provider, but we also are the care coordinator. We're looking at scheduling doctor's appointments, hairdresser, barber, maybe a family visit. So, our calendar looks crazy, I'm sure, for most of you, as you know. We're also the information resource. We know this person, we know them well. We know what they need, both medically, physically, and emotionally. We are the advocate for them. And this is an extremely important role. I can remember being a caregiver for a cousin of mine who had cancer, and I was taking him to the doctor one day, and he said, you know, I think I have shingles on my back. There's something going on my back. It itches all the time. And I lifted up his shirt and I said, Pat, I think you have shingles. And I said, and when we went to the doctor, I always went with him, but I let him do the speaking. Cognitively, he was intact. I was just there for maybe medical support, emotional support, advocate. I said, but you need to tell the doctor that you think you have shingles on your back, because he was going for a chemotherapy treatment. You need to tell him you have shingles on your back, because if you don't, and they do chemotherapy, that could be life-threatening for you. So we got to the doctor. He mentioned it 3 times, and the doctor just kind of blew it off. And finally I said, after he did his bit, I said, because I advocate, and that was my role, you need to lift up his shirt and look at his back. I think he has shingles. And with that, the doctor rolled his eyes and lifted up the shirt. And sure enough, he said, yes, you have shingles. We're going to have to cancel your chemo today. Had I not been there for that visit, the outcome could have been different. And so you don't realize how important your role as advocate is. And so when we look at all these roles, I don't want to say one role is more important than the other, but you know, some of them really pop up as more important at certain times. The emotional support is extremely important, because people who need care get very, very frustrated. And then the quality sentinel. You want to make sure things are being done right. And that's kind of an example of that as an advocate and a quality sentinel. So again, very important roles that we all play. Warning signs of caregiver burnout: anxiety, avoidance of people, not wanting to go out, depression, exhaustion, feeling of loss of control over life, irritability, lack of energy, loss of interest in things that you enjoy, and neglecting your needs or your health. I say this whenever I'm talking about caregiving and excuse me, I need to take a little sip of my water. When we talk about caregiving, I learned a lesson very young in motherhood. When I was with my first baby, one of the mother baby nurses came in, and she was doing some education with me. Excuse me. And she said to me, if you don't take care of yourself first, you can't take care of your baby. And at first I thought, well, that's kind of selfish. That doesn't make sense, until I got home and I started taking care of my baby. And because they're up all night, and you're up all night with them, and there's lack of sleep, and you're anxious because it's a new baby and it's a new responsibility, and if you've never really done this before, I found myself exhausted, depressed, feeling loss of control over my life, irritable, and I was neglecting my own health. I looked at this and I remembered thinking to myself then, maybe that nurse had something right. And so I started making sure that I was up and showered, I was in bed early, and my husband took some of the responsibility. And I found that I was now taking better care of my baby. Excuse me. So as a caregiver, you've got to take care of yourself first, or you're not going to be able to take care of the person you're working with, you're caregiving with. Here are some of your physical signs: body aches and pains, fatigue, frequent headaches, increased or decreased appetite. Are you an emotional eater, or are you someone that doesn't eat because they get nauseous when they're anxious? So are you losing weight, or are you gaining weight? Are you having trouble sleeping at night? And are you getting sick more frequently? You know, what happens when we're under a lot of stress is that it lowers our immune system. And when our immune system is lower, that's when we get infections, viruses, cold sores, And I can always tell when my immune system is down is when I get a cold sore on my mouth. And I know I need to back off a little bit, take some downtime, and get myself better. So you need to look at those physical signs that you experience for yourself that tells you you're heading in to kind of overdrive for yourself. So think about that. Again, some of those emotional signs we talked about. So let's talk about effects of chronic stress on your brain. Because your brain really gets the brunt of what's going on when you have stress.
Welcome to this week's Brain-Based Wellness News. In today's news, we look at the impact chronic stress has on your brain health and function. Approximately 90% of all doctor visits are due to stress-related health ailments. Chronic stress increases the stress hormone cortisol. Excess cortisol contributes to a wide variety of health problems, including weight gain, osteoporosis, digestive problems, hormone imbalances, cancer, heart disease, and diabetes. Cortisol also affects brain health and mental well-being with symptoms like memory loss, brain fog, anxiety, and worry. Some proactive steps you can take to reduce the impact stress has on your brain are: eat a diet high in antioxidant-rich foods like fruit, vegetables, dark chocolate, and green tea. Get daily physical exercise. Start a daily meditation practice. Get plenty of sleep. And of course, chiropractic care has been found to help people better manage their stress. Get regular chiropractic checkups for the whole family and make sure your spine and your brain are working the
Okay, so we'll end it there because it goes on to really talk more about chiropractic care. And I don't advocate for anything. What I do advocate is for whatever will get you well. Some people, and I'm one of those people, I love chiropractic care when it's appropriate, but there's really a lot of things that you can do to make yourself feel better and get rid of some of that stress. They talked about cortisol in this little snippet, and what I want to tell you is that when your brain is always releasing cortisol, but it releases it at an appropriate amount. When you get stressed, the release of cortisol from your adrenal gland goes up. And if it is constant, you'll notice that for some people, they start gaining weight in their mid-girth area because that's where cortisol is, can be stored. So again, think about when you want to get stressed, and we'll talk about some of the practices that we can do to relax ourselves. But one of those is just to take a couple of deep breaths. And we'll actually work on that in a minute.
best they can.
So what is compassion fatigue? It's a little bit different than burnout, and that's because it happens suddenly. When burnout occurs over time, as a caregiver feels overwhelmed, the stress of caregiving for a loved one, they'll experience compassion fatigue, and like I said, it happens suddenly. Burnout occurs over time. As a caregiver feels overwhelmed by the stress of caregiving, you'll see that compassion fatigue begins. We saw that a lot over the last year and a half with our healthcare workers. They really were experiencing a lot of compassion fatigue. The best thing that they could do for these people was maybe give them 24 hours off, but back to work with the same, crisis. My expectation is we're going to see a lot of healthcare providers, healthcare workers who are going to experience PTSD in the next couple of years. And so I think our mental health programs really need to be prepared for that. So let's talk about prevention of caregiver burnout. Many of us follow the commandment, love one another, but when it relates to caregiving, we must love one another with boundaries. We must acknowledge that we are included in that love one another. So like I said, self-care starts with us. If we can't practice self-care on us, we're not going to be able to take care of others. We need to look at our physical wellness. And when you say yes to others, you have to make sure that you're not saying no to yourself. I think it's really important that we get regular checkups, that we monitor our blood pressure, that we make sure our own medications are filled and ready for us when we need them, and that we're not experiencing, excuse me, any physical problems and ignoring them. We need to take care of those physical problems as well. We need to look at the ability to be in the present moment, because that is a major component of mental wellness. So we have to be emotionally well in order to take care of someone else. If we're dealing with something catastrophic in another part of our life, that's when we need to say, time out. I need some help because I need to get myself emotionally well before I can take care of someone else. That emotional wellness is just as important as the physical wellness. And again, we'll talk about some exercises that can help keep your emotional wellness in check. This is a simple breathing exercise that we can do together. I'll show it once and then we'll work on it individually together, I should say, on Zoom. So you're going to inhale till it gets to the largest shape, and then exhale. So try it with me. Inhale as deep as you can, and exhale. And inhale. Inhale, and then exhale. It's good if you can have some nice music playing in the background, but you really don't need to have anything. You just need to have a mental quietness, and you're breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. When you feel yourself starting to get stressed, that's when you should do it. When you just have some downtime and you really want to relax in that downtime, and you've been kind of jittery all morning because caregiving has been difficult, to get yourself really in that relaxed state, you want to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. I probably have several apps on my iPhone that I've downloaded. If you go to meditation under your apps, you'll find a few 1-minute or 30-second apps that will provide the music and will provide the background of the visualization for you, where you can do this breathing. It helps physically and emotionally. It clears the lungs, it gets the toxins out, it helps release, when you're relaxing, and helps release the endorphins, which are the good chemicals in your body. So there's a lot of positive effects from breathing in and breathing out and doing some meditation. You know, people think, I don't have time to meditate, you know, and it's a lot of voodoo. Really isn't. It just takes a minute to do it, and you can do it anywhere and any place.
Close your eyes.
Okay, so the next one is, let's set some realistic goals. It's not good enough to take steps which may someday lead to a goal, because each step must be itself a goal and a step likewise. If you don't set realistic goals, if you set realistic goals, you're never going to accomplish those. Unrealistic goals, I'm sorry. If you set unrealistic goals, you're never going to accomplish them. You know, my son does something funny. When he's making his to-do list, he tells me the first thing he does, the first thing he puts on his to-do list is write a to-do list. Isn't that silly? But it puts his brain in a positive form, because the first thing he can scratch off is create a to-do list, because that's what he's doing. It's just changing the mindset. So when you are starting your to-do list for the day, and you're one that writes down those things, write to-do list, writing a to-do list, then you can scratch it off. But if you've got a doctor's appointment for mom or dad or whoever you're caregiving for, and you have the tax guy coming over, and you have someone coming to visit, you know, grandma, those are 3 big events that you've got during the day. What else really can you fit in? It's okay if the laundry doesn't get done today. It's okay if you don't make a week's worth of meals. It's okay that you don't do some of those other tasks. What's not okay is you don't take care of yourself. So you're setting realistic goals for yourself, but when you set those goals, I want you always to make sure that you're setting one of those goals is self-care. So the next thing that we need to do is educate ourselves. Maya Angelou, she's one of my favorite poets, and she said, I did then what I knew how to do. Now that I know better, I do better. And that's one of my mantras I use all the time. I know better and I will do better. You weren't born as a caregiver. It's trial by error. It's listening to other people. It's maybe going to a support group. It's getting online and looking at caregiving self-help. I know for people who get ARP, they have a lot of information on caregiving. There's a lot of other very good caregiving online programs that you can look at for yourself. I know that when my daughter had a significant loss in her life, she didn't feel comfortable and didn't feel like she wanted to leave the house at that point. And so what she did was she found a group that had a similar loss than she did. And she got online with a group that had the similar loss as she did, and she connected with those. And that was 13 years ago, and she still keeps in contact with these people. And they're from all over the United States, and she's actually met 2 of them in person. So you may not be able to get out to a program, but or a group, but there's a lot of online groups. With the advent of Zoom being so popular, there's a lot of Zoom groups that you can go to. So educate yourself, read, get online, and know that when you know better, you'll do better. It's trial by error when we're caregiving. So communication is really important. The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. A lot of people think they've communicated something to someone, but they haven't. For example, I might think I am letting someone know that I'm frustrated and I need some help by the tone of my voice or by the verbiage that I use. But sometimes people need to be hit over the head with a simple direction. And instead of assuming that they understand that you're frustrated and that you need some time out, then it's easier and they'll understand better if you say, I need some help. Many people aren't comfortable caring for someone that has a specific issue. maybe taking care of someone with a urine bag that might make them a little queasy, or someone with dementia might intimidate them, having dementia. And so they may not feel comfortable coming in the house and relieving you of some of those pressures, but they want to help. And there's other ways they can help. Maybe they can take the run to the grocery store for you today. Maybe they can come and take the clothes to the cleaners. There's other things people can do to lighten your load, but they won't know what load they can lighten for you unless you communicate that with them. So it's important to do that. Forgiveness is not something we do for other people. It's something that we do for ourselves to move on. If we don't forgive, then it's really going to be another burden on our shoulders. Family dynamics are such that just about every family has a dysfunction to it. And there's been things that have been that happened in the past, but we have to forgive them because we need to move on. And so you have to be forgiving. Until you do that, you won't experience that breath of fresh air, that loss of burden that you feel when you forgive someone for something. So try to be forgiving because it will help you to move on. And then we need to look at respite care. Caregivers attract caregivers and live in a community of love. They are energized by their caring, fulfilled, and they love life. So we tend to identify with like people. Getting in a group of caregivers, you can lend a hand with each other and give that other person that time out that we've talked about. And so, look for that group and lean on them when you need to. Also, you need to know, and I know it's not an option for everybody, or they would want to take this option, but many of the home care agencies, many of the assisted livings, many of the nursing homes may have respite care for you, where you can have that person expertly cared for in your absence, and gives you that day, 1 day, 2 days, or whatever that you need to re-energize yourself. So look for respite care. Here's some respite care information for anybody that's interested. And really it can be arranged for just an afternoon. It can be arranged for several days or a week. But, and again, it can be provided at home, in a healthcare facility, or an adult daycare center. I know that when we had my father-in-law at home, there was an adult daycare center that was available, and we were able to bring him to adult daycare 3 days a week. What really that provided was socialization for my father-in-law. It also, there was some stimulation for him from the activities, and it gave me an opportunity to be at home by myself, be at work that day, do my grocery shopping, but give me that break that I needed from my caregiving responsibilities. Reflect on the rewards. The journey is the reward, not the destination. Caregiving can be very frustrating. It can be very demanding, but it also can be very rewarding. When the person says thank you, when they smile, when you know they've had a good day, when they eventually pass, and you reflect on those days that they did smile, they did have a good day, they said thank you, or you just connected with them on the level that was important to them, those are the little pearls of rewards that you get for caregiving. So I know many of you are enmeshed in the journey, but it's important that we live each day in that journey, and we are finding those little nuggets and those little rewards, but it's not the destination. We have to redefine success. Success today might mean that mom got up and got dressed. Today's success means that mom ate her whole lunch. Success for me today means that when mom was napping, my son was in the house, so I was able to get in and take a nice warm tub bath for myself. Success is not going to be measured in big things when we're caregiving. It's going to be measured in those smaller things that we do or accomplish. So we have to really redefine what success is for us today. And then it's important that you share your wish list. If I waited until I had all my ducks in a row, I'd never get across the street. Sometimes you just have to gather up what you got and make a run for it. Like I said, if you don't communicate and you don't tell people what you need, you know, around the holiday, maybe at Christmas time or during Hanukkah, someone says, you know, I want to get you a gift. What can I get you? You can say, you know what your gift can be to me, and give them a list. I need a new doorknob put on my door. I need the shelf hung in my bedroom. I need, you know, my garage straightened out. That's your wish list, because those are the things that you can't measure your success by because they're too big, but someone else can do it. And there are people out there that want to help you who may not be comfortable, like I said, with caregiving, but they want to help. And they will feel good about being able to help you, and you'll get something accomplished. So don't be afraid to share that wish list. Accept and adapt. Sadness comes from expectations. To be happy, adapt to everything and expect nothing. You know, being boots on the ground, learn, you know, trial by error, that's really accepting and adapting. And learning new things every day and not expecting much from them, except being happy in the moment. And I always felt with my mom and my father-in-law, if we were happy in the moment, that was my expectation for the day. Anything else was a perk. Everything else was above those expectations. So we have to accept and adapt what we are looking for. And as someone goes into the twilight of their life and they're ending, you know, their life is ending, you're going to make different adaptations for that. So again, I've said it 3 times during this, we've got to ask for help. There are people that are willing to help you. They just don't know what it is. They don't know how to ask. They don't know what to do. And you need to ask for that help. And then gratitude. Turn what you have into enough and more. Gratitude turns denial into acceptance, chaos into order, confusion into clarity, and it makes sense of our past, brings peace for today, and creates a vision for tomorrow. For many of you, it may be at the end of the day reflecting. For some of you, it may have to be reflecting by writing it down, but grab a notebook and start a gratitude journal. And if you're one person, you know, if you're someone that has to write that down. Otherwise, before you go to bed, before that your head hits that pillow, say out loud one thing that you're grateful for. I'm grateful that yesterday I was grateful that we got all our plants in the ground before it rained out. So that was what I was grateful for. Didn't get my laundry done. Didn't get to clean the bathrooms like I wanted to, but I was grateful that I got that done. So I changed, I adapted my expectations, and I was grateful for what I was able to accomplish that day. Here's a little science of gratitude and how it can change you.
Research shows that adopting an attitude of gratitude, simply expressing appreciation and being more thankful, can measurably improve your overall well-being. For example, studies prove that gratitude can increase happiness, reduce depression, and strengthen resiliency. Grateful people often experience reduced blood pressure, less chronic pain, increased energy, even longer lives. People who purposefully express more gratitude report higher self-esteem than those who don't, and they're more likely to help others a pro-social behavior also linked to greater happiness. People who capture grateful thoughts before bed sleep better than those who don't. Why so many positive changes? Because gratitude actually rewires our brains, kickstarting the production of dopamine and serotonin. Like antidepressants, these feel-good neurotransmitters activate the bliss center of the brain, creating feelings of happiness and contentment. This appears to be self-perpetuating. Research suggests that with regular practice, you'll train your prefrontal cortex to better appreciate and retain positive experiences and thoughts, and to deflect the negative ones. Here are a few simple ways to deliberately cultivate that attitude of gratitude. Celebrate minor accomplishments. Think about what you have rather than dwelling on what you don't. Tell the people in your life something you appreciate about them. Tell yourself too. Volunteer, hold a door for a stranger, or simply smile more, and you'll probably feel better, as kindness and giving are connected to gratitude. Similar positive brain changes can occur from regular meditation and mindfulness. Keep a daily gratitude journal using an old-fashioned notebook or a high-tech app. The science is clear. Give gratitude a go. You'll be thankful you did.
And I am grateful that all of you have joined me with me today. I'm grateful, I'll be grateful to know that maybe someone has walked out with kind of a renewed view on caregiving and self-care. I think really as we go through, as we finish these slides, I think the one thing I want you to take away with you today is if I don't take care of myself, I can't take care of others. So as you all go back to your caregiving, think about that and think about something that you're grateful for. So that ends my presentation today. Thank you very much. We can open it up for questions if you want.
Okay. Oh, there we go. I don't see any questions yet. Does hopefully some of the participants or attendees do have some questions. I'm way too calm now, I'll tell you that. How am I supposed to work now?
I know.
Oh, now I know why you're so calm. Oh, gosh.
That's because I deep breathe before I come into the center.
That's true. I do have a question. So if there is a caregiver out there who's struggling and they're trying to do the self-care and the meditation and such, but they really need just a sounding board, what are your suggestions for those type of people?
You know, there's really a lot of groups that that will help you with that, and you can actually, if you connect up with. Do we have any of those in our directory, Jennifer? Do you know?
We do have some support groups listed.
Okay, so if you want a directory, which would be helpful, we can, if you put your email in the chat, we can tell you how you can get one online, or if you want one, we can send one out to you. So there's some support groups. And I think, you know, being in a support group with other people who can be sympathetic, you know, people can be empathetic, but they're not walking in your shoes. And these are other people who are walking in your shoes and they understand it. So I think, and then what you might do is find someone in that group that you connect with. I know I have a friend who lost her husband a couple years ago, and she went to a support group at her church, and she has found like people that, because I think when you've been a caregiver and that person passes, you know, you've given up those years of your life caregiving, and you've lost some friendships because people move on. And where was Judy? So she met some like people who also had lost their partners, and they travel together now and they do things, they meet for coffee. So support groups can bond you with just an individual or a group of people that you can use as a sounding board. I think that's extremely important. There's always counseling. There's always seeing someone, a therapist. But some people say, I'm not in need of that. I really need more of a support group, and they're out there. So again, if you want to put your email and your name in the chat box, we can grab that from you and then get that information to you. A lot of your senior centers will have that information also, so you could reach out to your senior center as well. Jennifer, do you have any more?
We had a comment. That is excellent at giving advice, but offers no help. Caregiving can be frustrating enough without the advice. So my comment to that, I know we have lots of comments to that. Yes, caregiving can be frustrating and you feel like you're going to explode. Sometimes you don't need advice. Sometimes you just need to talk at someone and have them say nothing. So what I always tell my friends is, I just want you to listen. Don't say anything. I don't need your advice. Just listen to me. And then you can just go, if they're your friend, they'll listen to you and take care of you that way. Or as Chris said, counseling. There's many, many support counselors out there that are really good listeners, and they only offer advice as needed. And we can give you referrals for those types of folks. But the support groups, honestly, is a sounding board. They don't always give advice. They just let you rant. I did find some other locations on Facebook where there are caregiver support groups where people just rant. And they're like, I don't need anything. I just need to put this down, and it helps. So I know it is frustrating being a caregiver. You aren't alone. There are millions of caregivers out there struggling just like you. And there are services to help. You do need to take a respite, take time for yourself, get someone to help you at home. There are home care agencies, and if you can't afford it, there are low income support through like Catholic Charities or Senior Services, or through the VAC. The VAC does have caregiver support and respite, and that's paid for through the VA so that you can get a respite. Here's another question or another comment. Sometimes I feel very guilty after being angry with my mom, who I understand is really not mentally there.
And that guilt is very, very normal. I felt guilty for a very long time. Even after her death, I felt guilty about, did I do the right things? You know, as I reflected back, you know, did I say the right things? Did I do the right things? I think it's human nature to get frustrated. Don't beat yourself up. Guilt is a normal part of caregiving. And again, talking about that guilt and having that reassurance that it's normal. You're a human being. You're a teapot, and once the teapot is full, it's going to boil. And so that's very normal. Don't feel guilt. I can tell you not to feel guilty, but you're still going to feel guilty. And again, it helps to talk that out. So. You know, and if you're starting to feel guiltier and you know your behavior is changing, that's really when we need to call a timeout. We had something when I worked as an educator in one of our nursing homes in long-term care, and we had something called a tap out. And because those our CNAs and the caregivers are, and I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you, most of them work 16 hours a day. They go from one job to another job because they're not paid well. And so they get burnt out and they get tired. They do this 7 days a week, as well as we do as care. We do it 24 hours, 7 days a week. So, you know, they also feel that. So when they start to feel that, we taught them to do a tap out, and they would come to the charge nurse or another CNA, and they would tap them on the shoulder and say, I need a tap out. And that meant that they needed 5 minutes, 10 minutes, go in the break room, take a few deep breaths, put their feet up, watch 5 minutes of the TV that just just loops in the break room, and then come back, and they were a little more refreshed. And so when you find yourself doing that, you know, do a self tap out and say, I just need 5 minutes, go to the bathroom, shut the door, take a deep breath, turn, you know, the cold water on, splash it on your face, whatever you can do to make yourself feel better in that moment. And then come back out and try to regroup and try to continue doing your caregiving. However, If you find that few minutes, that tap out is not working for you, you're heading into burnout, and that's when you need to reach out to those people, and that's when you need to say, I need help. And don't feel guilty at all about it. We've all been in that situation.
The problem with caregiver guilt is you'll just keep burning that candle till there's no candle left. Sometimes that leads to physical or verbal abuse of the person you're caring for, or just unfortunately illness and death for the caregiver.
Yep.
We at Elderwerks do care. I mean, we are here for you. You can always call us and say, hey, I just need you to listen. We're happy to listen. We don't need to give advice all the time. We have great people at Elderwerks who are really good listeners. So if you do need just to talk, call us. If you need just anything at all, please just call us, because you do need that lifeline for yourself and for your own sanity. We don't want to get a call from the family saying, you know, Mrs. Smith has passed away. Her husband, who has Alzheimer's, is now alone. We do not want that. So let's see what we can do to help you. If there is something you need, call us. If you are an emergency type situation, call us. If you just want to ask about the way you're doing things, call us. The point is, we're always here. And if you don't want to talk to Elderwerks, there are tons of people we can refer you to that will listen as well. They're great, great people out there. I don't know if there's any more questions. Any more questions out there? No? Okay. Well, Elderwerks and the Veterans Assistance Commission of McHenry County have put this whole week together to help people plan for future needs and to maybe help with current needs. We do appreciate you coming live with us today, and with Chris, Petrik. Chris, thank you so much for presenting. It takes a special person to understand the caregiver's needs, and not everybody can be a caregiver. When you understand that, like I know I'll never be a good caregiver, and it's not because I'm selfish, it's just because I'm short-tempered. I'm Dutch, what can I say? We're short-tempered people. So just know who you are and what you need, and reach out when you do. So thank you very much for attending, and have a fabulous day.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, please do.